Hi there, it's Tiffany from Daisy Farm Crafts, and today I'm going to demonstrate how I made this beautiful throw. Very simple. I'm going to call it the Even Moss Mock Cable Throw because I really feel like they just this is the easiest way to get maybe this little cable look. And the yarn I'm using is Bernat Forever Fleece. Loved it to use it for a throw. This worked up relatively quick because this is a 6-weight, super bulky. I did use a slightly larger hook. It's recommended a 9mm. I went up into the 10mm just to make sure I had enough drape because I am using single crochet. So this is a nice, fairly weighted blanket, not super, but it's gonna be very cozy. I'm sending it off to my nephew who lives in Chicago. He just got married. So I'm thinking this will keep them warm in those Chicago winters. Anyway, let's get started for this super, I would say beginner, very beginner friendly mock cable throw. So for the throw that I made, it was a 60-inch by 40-inch. So I made that base chain just short of 60 inches. That was about 130 chains for me. For today, I'm just going to do a little sample of 16 chains. You just need an even number to get this pattern correctly. So you can make this blanket any size that you would like. Just begin with an even number of chains. Okay, so I have 16 chains here, and we're going to begin with single crochet in the second chain from the hook. Now this does not count as a chain, the one that's on the hook. So we'll count 1, 2, and work your first single crochet right into that first chain, or that second chain from the hook. And then work 1 single crochet into each chain across the row, and that should leave you with a total of 15 single crochets. So this color that I'm using here is Rose Hip, and the color I used for the cream blanket, they only have one color and it's the white color. But it kind of had like a little bit of a cream look to it. It's not bright white. Okay, so we have our 15 single crochets done. Always chain 1 and turn at the end of the row. So I did do that, chain 1, turn your work, and the first 4 rows will be all single crochet. So continue working until you have those 4 rows. I'm just keeping my work nice and loose. I want to have a nice little drape to this blanket, so I'm not crocheting overly tight. Just kind of letting the larger hook do the work for me of keeping it loose. Now, if you are a beginner and you have a hard time seeing the last stitch of the row, I'm going to give you a little hint here. Because when you get that blanket, you're going to be going across. You don't want to have to count 130 stitches, 129 stitches all the time. That was my chain 1 and turn. So here's my tip for you. Right after you make this very first single crochet, I would encourage you to get a stitch marker of some sort an earring, a bobby pin, something that won't come undone, and put it underneath the 2 little V's of that stitch that you just made. Marking this first stitch of the row will tell you when you come back and do a return that this is your last stitch of the row, and that's the stitch to be worked into. So let's cruise across and let's do that for the next row too. Okay, so I just finished the 3rd row, chain 1 and turn, and I'm going to be making that very first stitch, and I'm going to place a stitch marker underneath it. So I've placed a stitch marker underneath the very first stitch of this row, and this is the start of row 4. So now you can tell as I work across row 4, the last stitch of that row is marked, and I'll know that I don't need to accidentally stop one short or do one extra. This will help me. So let's get that 4th row done. Okay, last stitch of the row, I'm going to remove this stitch marker, and that was my 4th row. Chain 1 and turn. And now after you have 4 rows of work, now this is where kind of the even moss stitch will come into play and make it look like that little mock cable. Always begin the row with a slip stitch. So that's just inserting your hook, pulling a loop all the way through the next. And I'm going to stop and I'm going to mark that little V like that. Now yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and pull through all 3 loops. This is a half double crochet. Work slip stitch, half double crochet, slip stitch, half double crochet. So this is the repeating pattern, and we'll do it for 2 rows. But you want to make sure that if you've done your counting correctly, you're going to end the row with a slip stitch. Here we go. So my last stitch, let's take this little thing out, is a slip stitch. Chain 1, keep that chain 1 kind of loose. Turn your work. And 1 more row of even moss. We'll begin with a slip stitch right into that slip stitch. There's our chain 1 and turn. This doesn't count as anything. Here's our slip stitch. We immediately see that little V that we made. That's the top of the stitch. And mark it. Now, the half double crochets are worked just underneath the 2 loops of the half double crochet of the row below. And then here's our slip stitch worked underneath the 2 V's of the slip stitch. So when I say underneath, it's kind of like here's 1 bar. These are the bars that face you, but if you look at the top, here's the 2 little V's, and I'm going underneath these 2 little V's. Okay, but I'm yarning over, under the 2 little V's, pull up a loop, pull through. That's half double crochet. And here you go. You're on your way. So the pattern is 4 rows of single crochet, and 2 rows of even moss. Very simple, very, and then just gives, I just thought it just turned out so beautifully. I love mixing up stitches like this, and I'm really liking finding an easier way to kind of get that cabled look on a throw without having to do all the complicated treble crochets and things. So glad I have this last stitch marked. Sometimes those slip stitches can hide. So now I know, slip stitch, chain 1 and turn, and we're back to doing 4 rows of single crochet. I'm gonna keep this consistent. I'll just mark that right away. You'll get into a really good little habit. And then maybe after a while, you'll be able to recognize that last stitch of the row, and you'll be okay. So I'm gonna work on this just a little bit more, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how I just did a very simple single crochet border, and I was done. So this is a great, perfect little easy, almost mindless, put on good shows, work on your crochet blanket every night. So good, so peaceful and relaxing. Not much to remember with this one other than the 4 rows of single crochet in between the 2 rows of even moss. Well, how did your sample look? So I've got 4 rows single crochet, 2 rows of the even moss, 4, 2, 4. So if you can look at the other side, looks pretty much the same. Now, pretend this is the very end of your blanket. What you're going to do is go ahead, is chain 1 and turn, and this first row of single crochet is your first round of the border. So I just am working 1 single crochet across the row into the top of each single crochet. So at the end of the row and at this very last stitch, I'm going to work 2 more single crochets. That is the corner. And now as I look down the sides of my blanket, you'll see that there's kind of a large hole, and then the end of the row is a little bit smaller. So what we're gonna do to make this look as neat as possible, because if we did 1 single crochet at the end of each row, they kind of would be like, like that. I don't know, just not in evenly spaced. So what I like to do is find this narrow space, at the end of this row, and work 2 single crochets. It also helps to kind of like close the gap of, these are your turning chains. So I'm just working 2 in each of those. And then when I get to the corner, I'll still work 3. Okay, here's my starting chain right here. So I will go ahead and work my corner stitch there. 1, 2, and 3. And now I'll just work 1 single crochet at the bottom of each stitch here. Here I am at this other corner working my 3 single crochets, and now same thing, it'll look a little bit different on this side. So here's my holy one right there. So I'm going to go ahead and work 1 stitch that was right there, skip this one, and I'm going to work 2 over here. So just kind of give it your best estimation here of where to place. We just want to make the, you know, the base of it as even as possible on these sides. That's the trickiest part. Okay, I don't know if I said it earlier, but I used 8 skeins for a throw that was 60 by 40, and I pretty much used all 8 skeins. So if you go slightly bigger than that, you're going to want to get 9. If you go smaller, of course, you don't need that many. But 8 worked exactly. Okay, in this final one, you know, our first corner, I'm just going to work 2, and I'll slip stitch to that very first single crochet, and we are done. Give yourself a long end. Grab one of those tapestry needles and weave your ends in, and you've got just a really simple, beautiful throw. Let me show you the white one again so you can see just how all of those, you know, they just turned out so pretty. Both sides, you've got kind of this little mock cable. So an even moss mock cable blanket. Very beginner friendly. Very beginner friendly. Whoops. Very beginner friendly. Just beautiful. All right, you guys, thank you for stopping by. I hope you have lots of luck. I can't recommend this yarn enough for just cozy comfort. It's just so soft. I think it's polyester. Let's see. Or is it a blend? Yeah, it's a polyester blend, but it just feels just like fleece. It really does. So, all right, you guys, you have a wonderful day.